Hi, welcome to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's virtual event about women who rock the music industry. We're here this evening to listen to stories and hear advice from women who work with Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees about the challenges and successes that they've faced in their careers and how their lives and the music industry has changed this past year with the pandemic. The idea for this event came from our wonderful colleague and friend, Carla Dragati, who works with our amazing inductees, Cheap Trick, but she couldn't be here with us this evening, but we all wanted to give her a huge shout out to Carla. Thank you for this idea. Maybe we can do another one and have you join us. So thank you. As Carla and I were talking about how this event could come together, it was backstage at a Cheap Trick ZZ Top show, and we immediately started naming and listing off all of these amazing women that we knew who worked in this industry. And I thought about a few who I've personally worked with on Rock Hall events and inductions. And, you know, these women are kind and interesting and confident, and they all have full lives outside of their jobs, which I think is really important. These women are empowerment. They embody positive success for other gals, or really anyone who wants to work in the music industry. We all make up this music family. We're all from the same tribe. So it's my pleasure, my honor to introduce our panelists today. First, we have Carolyn Snell, who is an accomplished music industry veteran with nearly 25 years of combined touring, live event management, and marketing experience. She's overseen and coordinated worldwide tours for artists including Reba McEntire, Janet Jackson, John Mayer, Brandi Carlile, and the Indigo Girls, among many others. Additionally, Carolyn is an advocate and former member of the board of directors for Thistle Farms in Nashville, which provides housing, employment, and healing for women survivors of trafficking, prostitution, and addiction. Carolyn, thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me. This is super fun. Thank you.
Cool. All right, next we have Annie DiBiasi, who graduated from Five Towns College with a Bachelor of Business Management and Music Business. During her college years, she worked at the school's theater learning lighting while interning at Blackheart Records, which is Joan Jett's record label. Following graduation, she was asked to tour with Joan Jett the Blackhearts full-time and worked as their assistant tour manager, lighting director, production, and merchandising manager. So she did everything. We all do everything. Annie's been a part of U.S. tours with Heart, Cheap Trick, Styx, Boston, The Who, a South American tour with the Foo Fighters, an Australian tour, and more. She's also the singer and guitarist for an all-female rock and roll band, Jackknife Stiletto, now on Blackheart Records. Thank you, Annie, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And we also have the wonderful Jessica Squire, who's been in the music industry since 2007. She studied in France and graduated from Ohio University with a Bachelor in Fine Arts Sculpture, and then moved to Montana to snowboard, which is so cool. She worked for an events marketing company and toured the US for Sprite.com. She became an international flight attendant for a charter airline to see the world, and it was her last trip to South America in April 2007 that she met the Aerosmith crew and was offered a job with the band that would change her life. She was Aerosmith's production coordinator, then worked for paid VIP and celebrity services in Boston, where she managed VIP manager for Return to Forever, the Moody Blues, and Monsters of Metal tour. She then returned to Aerosmith in 2009, and even after she became a mother in 2011, she did all of the pre-production for every tour until 2018. Jessica was the band road manager for the Joe Perry Project in 2009, and her husband, John Bianelli, was tour manager. They toured with Bad Company in the UK and Motley Crue in Canada. In 2016, Jessica began working with Def Leppard as the assistant tour manager, and then took over the tour manager role in 2018. So thank you, Jessica, for being with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So I know all of you personally, and I've worked with all of you professionally. And so it's just such a wonderful way to share your love of rock and roll and your experience in this music industry. So I'm going to ask all of you, where were you and what happened when you found out about the pandemic and everything shutting down? Carolyn, you want to start?
Sure. I was like, are you going to pick people? Raising
Yeah.
me first. Let me be first. I was out on the road with Alanis Morissette. It was the 25th anniversary of the Jagged Little Pill album. It's going to be a worldwide tour, as a whole thing. And we had done 3 promo shows in 3 weeks in Europe. And in London, we were, it's sort of like you heard rumblings of something happening, so, closer to where we were at the time, overseas. I remember actually talking to the London hotel restaurant waitress, and she said, my parents live in Italy and they can't go outside anymore. They have to actually stay inside. And I went, wow, that's so strange. I hate that for them. Went home. So we went home, no problem, like the same time that we were supposed to. And then a week and a half later, everything shut down. So it's like the most ironic thing that could happen on this tour. How did you do that?
Yes. How about you, Jessica?
So I was home. We decided to move back to where I grew up because we have family here and it helps with touring. So I'd been home back to Ohio for about 3 months. Kids were just getting situated in school. We were gearing up to do a big stadium tour with Annie. And I was planning a trip to Dublin to meet with our band to have a production meeting. I was going to go to New York City for a budget meeting prior to that. And we had a little family vacation and we canceled everything the same week. And then we became homeschool parents for a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What about you, Annie?
So the Blackhearts had shows that weekend, as well as my band also had a show. We were supposed to open for Bowling for Soup, which was a big show for us. And within like an hour of me I was literally sitting at a coffee shop when they're like, your show's canceled. The Blackheart shows are all canceled. So I'm like on the phone trying to, reroute merch orders that are being shipped to random places and figuring out what was going to go on. So I was like, and I probably should leave this coffee place. So I'm going to go home.
Just everything changed just overnight. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so what do you miss about being on the road? Anyone?
I would say, yeah. Oh God, the bunk is so good. I mean, really, for me, it was always travel and community. Those are the 2 things I loved. Road family, I loved the travel, and those are the 2 things that are completely gone. Which is why this feels like so heavy and personal, because it's really those are the perks of the job on the road.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you didn't know that it was hot in Nashville in the summer.
Yes,
You're never there.
So hot. Used to air conditioned venues, like freezing cold or freezing cold bunks.
Yes.
So great.
What about you, Jessica? What do you miss about being on the road?
For shows, I miss walking our band to stage, and I miss standing with the women I work with every show before the start of the show. We'd walk the band on stage and then go side stage right behind the monitor desk and watch the opening. And it was something that never got old. It never gets old. It's always because you're in a sea of people happy for all different reasons. And I miss that a lot. I miss going out to dinner. I miss the community, like you were saying, Carolyn.
Mm-hmm.
It's in most other industries, if they had to work from home, that was pretty much all that changed. But with us, every single thing in our lives changed.
Yeah.
So that's the hardest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Annie?
I mean, definitely all the same things we all said here, but yeah, I just miss, I miss the band and the crew, being around your people every day that you see more than your family, really, or friends at home, or even, traveling throughout the year. You get to see your friends and family across the world, really. And you really miss that this year because you're like, oh, everyone I know is like, a lot of people aren't even near where you live anymore because you're like, oh, I see them on the road all the time. So I do miss that factor too of like getting to see people and that opportunity.
Yeah, and so since you've had so much time on your hands over the past year, even though you all have full lives where you volunteer and you have family and you have band, have you learned any new skills that you like are surprising to you? Carolyn, I know you have, so I'm gonna go with you.
I was like, I don't know if this is a skill, but I'm gonna do a little side. I decided I had to like stay busy, and I'm trying to do my yoga and try to meditate and all that good stuff. But last Christmas, I actually was thinking of something for my parents to get them for presents, and I was like, okay, I don't have any money coming in. I don't know what to get. I want to do something, maybe a little arts and craft project. So I found some VHS tapes of theirs in the basement, and I brought it back, and I was like, I'm sure there's a way to make these a digital file. So I figured out a way to digitize these VHS tapes from like 20, 30 years ago and gave it to them for Christmas. And just to see their faces of, these are memories. This is what we all, these are our memories. But to have them see it again was so joyful. And I was like, what would happen if I did this as a little side hustle? So I started doing that. And I just put it on social media. And it's literally like, back here, it looks like a 1986 office from heaven. There are 3 VCRs. My dad gave me a couple of VCRs. It's awesome. So I started doing this, and it's been really fun, though, because it's like giving that little piece of joy to people and, making a little side money. I was like, if I can pay my mortgage, I'm fine. But let me just do this creative sort of keeping busy and keeping sane process. So that's my skill, VHS tapes.
It's just being creative and industrious, that's what we do. Like even planning this, it was so great because each of you planned for your, everything was down, organized, that it was like there was like 4 or 5 really amazing women planning this event. Every little detail, What about Jessica and Annie? Have you stayed busy? What have you been doing?
So, well, I have 2 little boys. And so in the beginning, they were home with us 24/7. So we had to learn how to be teachers and parents and patients. And so that was that. And then they did go back to school. And I've really learned how to slow down because especially in this job, in these kind of jobs, you're always at it. You work very long hours. You're always available. You're always looking at your phone. You're always busy, and I've learned how to be a little bit less busy. I've started reading for pleasure, which I never did before. I'm trying to learn Spanish, but it's going very slowly. We exercise a lot. We just try to take care of ourselves and enjoy this time because although it hasn't been good, there have been some really good things that come of it, and we wouldn't have had this time with our family, and for that, we're grateful. So.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Annie, I know you've been making some artwork.
Yes. I got into acrylic pouring, which I had, a box of before the pandemic, and it just sat there for months. And finally I was like, hey, let me do it. And then people were like, hey, I'd buy that. So I started a little Etsy shop just to start putting. I was like, hey, if people want, some of this, why not? And then my band's been consistently just putting out, weekly content, live chats, some acoustic virtual streams, and I've been doing a lot of video editing. So I've been learning a lot of that and just getting better at, Photoshop and just anything to keep myself busy because I don't like not being busy. So it definitely, like Jessica says, to try to learn to slow down a little bit and kind of take the time. But definitely that's something that's like a rough thing for me to do is to not do anything because I've always been doing something. If I'm not on the road with one band, then I'm doing something else with someone else. Like I'm like, what's a day off?
Right.
Yeah. Well, all 3 of you work with Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, which to me means you're an expert. You're the cream of the crop. You're at the top of your game. How did you learn to do what you do? Like, how did you learn the skills? Because you all have such varied backgrounds. Jessica, how did you learn your job?
So I got my job in such a random way. I worked for the airline, and Aerosmith chartered our airplane. And we were with them for 2 weeks in South America. And it was my very last trip. I was done working for the airline that trip no matter what. And at the end of the 2 weeks, the production manager, who is awesome, said to me, I like your vibe. You should quit your job and come and work with us. Because he had been a Live Nation rep, and it was his first big gig as a tour manager or production manager. So I was young and crazy, and I was like, sure, okay. So my first tour was Aerosmith's World Tour in 2007, and he put me in touch with someone who had been his assistant in the past, and I had a pen and paper, and I found this notebook when we moved, so about a year ago, and it was hilarious because I wrote down everything she said and some really great advice, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a rigger was. I didn't know what load-in meant. I knew nothing. So I didn't sleep a lot, and I just focused on making my job a priority. And we had to get visas while we were on that tour because everything was happening so quickly. So I barely ate, I worked a lot, and I learned a lot. And
You just jumped right in the fire then.
Yeah, and also I had, like you guys were saying about our crew, the people that we work with aren't just people that we work with. They become your family, and they see when you need help, even if you don't ask for help. And it's really a wonderful community, and that's another thing I miss most, because people are always there for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
What about you, Annie?
I mean, college only teaches you so much as far as just like reading books and things, but a majority of me learning stuff was on the road. Blackheart has sent me out on Warped Tour when I was still in college, and that's where I really learned how to sell merch and things like that. And that's when I fell in love with touring, was Warped Tour. So I loved it, and didn't know exactly, what I was going to end up doing, but I was also doing lighting in college, which was my college job. I never took a class in it either, so I was just learning as I went. And then a week after graduation, they took me out on tour, and I sat in front of a light board I never saw in my life, and I was like, figure this out, So I'd be on planes, like literally researching light boards and how to do things, and I would just learn on the road. And everyone, a lot of people that you meet at the gig, the house people and your crew, you watch what they're doing, watch how they interact with people, and just ask for help. And a majority of people will, be like, hey, and there's so many different ways to do everything. So it's like you could learn so many different things from people. So constantly learning, and anything I need to know, then I try to figure it out, and go from there, and just have those people you could call as well and say, hey, I don't know what this is, like, help me.
Yeah, I think I still do that.
Yeah.
You're right. We should never stop learning. What about you, Carolyn?
Well, I started, I knew I wanted to go on the road. I didn't know, same thing, you don't know what the jobs are until you're there. And so I had a degree in PR, and I still have to go back and think, there was one person that said, one way to get on is doing corporate sponsorship on the road. And that was so foreign to me, but I was like, but I've got the degree in PR. I'm sure I could figure that out. And, back in the day, it was, you don't Google stuff. You go to Billboard magazine and you go through the pages to see who's touring. And there was Lilith Fair was going up for the second year, and they had a ton of corporate sponsors. And I literally just called every corporate sponsor and been like, do you need someone to go on the road and hang up banners or do whatever? And somebody took me in. And when I got that same kind of thing, you look around, you see what people are doing. So I'm hanging banners, but I'm checking out all the different positions, all the people, what they're doing. And as I continued to do corporate sponsorship on tours, one time I had, you get your gig down, and then you just make yourself available. I'd go to the tour manager and be like, do you need help with tickets and passes? Do you want me to set up the dressing room? Do you want me to, just anything? Of course, they love it because they're getting free help. And they're like, great, yeah, please do it. But you're learning. And so then the next year in that tour specifically, I was like, you need an assistant. I'm already doing the work. Just give me that gig. And that's how I transitioned over to tour management. But I think it's really just paying attention, asking questions, like you guys said, and really being open to seeing what other jobs are there. Because even when you're in it and you think you know what you want to do, you could see something totally different and be like, oh, that looks really interesting. And once you're in the family, once you're in the door, I think then you can kind of move around and figure out where your strengths are.
Yeah. And just all of you learned your job while you were doing it. Mm-hmm. And you stuck with it and were determined and put a lot of work. I think a lot of people, one big misconception about the music industry is that it's all glamorous all the time. And, before we got on this call, I was telling everyone that this is my third shirt from today. I sweat through 2 other shirts just doing events here at the museum. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of little tiny grunt work. And, you just have to be willing to not complain and just do the work and learn, like you said. Mm-hmm. Now, being women in this industry, I think that the music community is so great. Does it matter that you're a woman? Have you faced challenges because of that or not? Annie, let's start with you.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's an advantage, sometimes it's a disadvantage. There's certainly things. I feel like I get it more with lighting, where they're like, "What do you mean you're doing the lights? What are you doing up there?" Like, or people being surprised that I somehow managed to put on a good show. And like, wow, I've never seen a girl do the lights before. That was great. You were actually really good. And I'm like,
people have actually said that to you?
oh yeah, for sure. And even the last tour we just did, I was being right before the show was starting. I was ready to go at the light board, and I'm getting yelled at on the headset to look for the LD. I'm like, I'm here. I'm at the board. He's like yelling, "No, I need the spot. I'm not the spot op. I need the lighting LD." I'm like, it's me. Look at front of house. I'm up here, red hair. Like, oh, okay. Let's start the show.
So they just assumed that you...
Yeah, that I was just, not supposed to be there. But you get a lot of things with like, oh, you can't lift things. You can't do that, So there's definitely those things. But sometimes it helps, But...
just the bravery and the confidence. I think those are, confidence is definitely something that women struggle with. It's something that grows over time. And just to have the confidence to just go out and do it regardless, What about you, Jessica? Have you ever had any situations where...
I have, but I don't care. And so when my sister and I went to college together, and my parents bought a house, and we lived in that house, but it was our responsibility to fix the things that were broken if we could. So my father, before we moved, he bought us two how-to books and some power tools. And my parents said, if the sink's clogged, you figure it out. So I feel like from birth, we were taught that we could do anything. It doesn't matter. So, and I think all of us have, because we're all doing what we want to do in spite of the fact that these are male roles historically,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you worked so hard to get that opportunity to get in the door, as Carolyn said, and then you didn't sleep. You learned how to do it, and you have to double learn how to do it because you're a woman in some instances. What about you, Carolyn?
I think at the beginning it was kind of a blend. Like, I didn't know if they would sort of like blow me off, or kind of like, oh, that's nice. If it's because I was new and green and I just didn't know yet, or if it's because I was female. So as I continued to grow, and then, grow my network of connections and artists that I've worked with, then it's like, you can't just poo-poo me off as just because I'm a female tour manager. Even putting that title before, it's hard. It's even hard now for me to say that. Like, I say female tour manager because I want to almost point out that, yes, I can do the job, but like, there's this element too, I think, that we all bring to our jobs, being a woman on the road. And a lot of times now I've noticed, in probably the last, other than last year, of course, the last couple of years before everything, I did notice people were actually asking for female tour managers, like almost having a preference. Some artists were. And I like that idea. I like that, what we bring, our, whatever we bring to it, that essence that maybe men don't have. I like that I can use that to my advantage. And I want to be able to embrace that and say, yeah, this is the extra bit that I'm a great tour manager, and I bring this extra bit too.
Yeah, because all three of you have really focused organizational skills. You're really good at multitasking, and having really full lives. Jessica with your family, and Annie with the band, and Carolyn with all your volunteer work. But you also have those soft skills, which not everyone has, and those skills to relate to other people and maybe calm down a situation or problem solve, and really be able to solve problems in the moment. Because I feel like Lisa, the producer of this show, and I were talking before this event about how in rock and roll music, in this music industry, literally things change 10,000 times. You can plan, you can make the biggest plan, but just the nature of it, just the spirit of it, things are going to change. What are some of the biggest challenges that you think that you face in your job, that you would, if you were talking to a young person who is coming up, what do you think would be something that you would share with them that it would be a challenge that they would have to overcome to get into the industry?
Well, advice I would give them would be to advance everything as thoroughly as possible, but expect you to have several challenges throughout your day, no matter how hard you work prior to. Because when you're touring, the heavy load of work happens before you even go on the road. And then when you get out there, every day in a book should look the same, but it never looks anywhere near the same. So I would say, yeah, right? I would say, cross your T's, dot your I's, and then be ready for anything.
Be ready for anything. Yeah. Any other challenges, Jessica or Annie, you can think of? Any advice that you'd give to young folks? Because they know all the fun stuff. They know all the good stuff. What would you tell them without turning them off on the job,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, for people that are wanting to get into it, especially like, that thinking of it, that glamorous idea, and like if you want to be an LD or if you want to like be the top tour manager, whatever the thing is, it's like, don't ignore what you might consider the little roles. Don't ignore those. Like get in. That's the way to get in. You get in and you are the runner or the PA or the assistant wardrobe person. You go in there and you show everyone who's there how great you do this job. I promise you, like 9 times out of 10, people won't remember exactly what you did, but they'll remember how hard you worked and your attitude. And that will transfer, like, years, months later, when somebody's looking, going, I remember that one person in Cleveland. Let's call her up. We need somebody right now. Or when you're in Cleveland doing the show and, your person quits, you're doing the job. And like, it doesn't really matter. I got a little hung up a little bit at the beginning, being like, I don't want to just be sponsorship. I want to be tour management. But who knew that people were watching me? And years later, that would actually translate into a job as a tour manager.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. Just, you have to be ready to adapt to any situation, really, and just learn everything you can. And you might like something you didn't think you would. Like if you went in as merch and you're like, oh, I didn't even know like production, dressing rooms, that type of thing was a job. Like, because I didn't know anything. So I'm like, okay, that's a job. Cool. I'll do it. Whatever, doing the guest list, doing like, just kind of learn at least a little bit of everything. Cause then also things happen on the road where, maybe a crew person gets sick or something happens, like, and these shows are still going to happen. So if anyone's able to go and help each other out, then I think that's always like a valuable thing to kind of adapt and help out your band and crew put on the show.
Totally.
Yeah. Stay calm, right? That's one thing I always have to tell myself, just stay calm. Figure it out,
And also treat everyone the same. Like no role is more important than the other one. Your bus driver has one of the most important jobs on the road. He has to get you safely overnight to the show. So I'm no more important than anybody else in the building. And I think if you remember that, then everybody respects each other and they work harder for each other too.
Yeah. And then you become like a, well-oiled machine. You're a team, your family, like you said. So all 3 of you have chosen to work in the music industry. Why is music important? Why is it important to you? Why is it magical?
It's the escape, right?
It's like, I want Annie to answer.
I think it's the escape. It gets you away from whatever's bothering you, or it's you're all in there together, whether you're working or a fan, and it's just a super cool thing to be a part of. And when I first started going to shows, I was like, I need to be a part of this somehow. Like I need, whether it's on the stage, behind the stage, whatever. Like I got to be, this is just a cool thing,
And it's a solitary experience in a sea of so many people. So it's different for everybody. You could have one reaction to a song and I could have a complete opposite. And it's so,
And that live experience too. Like when you're talking about on the side of the stage, like just that when the lights go down and that feeling that you get, it's like, it doesn't get old. That feeling, there's this whole thing's about to happen, but there's just that split second that just, you're like, okay, ready for the magic. Here it comes.
I love turning the lights off.
Yes, thank you for that. You do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of live music, as restrictions ease and vaccines are now available, what are you most looking forward to in this next year? I mean, I know that's a general question because we don't really know what's going to happen, but you know, what do you think personally or professionally, what are you looking forward to?
Bugs.
Hugs.
Yeah.
Hugs.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think being on the bus again, I mean, I miss the bus, which is so crazy because when you're on the bus for so long, you're like, when am I going to be home? And now I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening? When can we go back? Or I'll miss it.
Yeah, I just hope we can get back to work again safely, and
Yeah.
you know, we all want that. So I just hope when it happens, it'll be amazing. We're just all holding on to that right time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We know we'll get there.
It'll get there. Just when we don't know, but yeah.
When and how and what sort of new configurations people will have to do.
Mhm.
But I think people will do it because they know we all need live music. We all want that back. And I think that if you say, come with a mask on, make sure you're vaccinated, I kind of feel like people are going to go, okay, how do I just get into a building to see people?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have the NFL draft coming up here in Cleveland in about a month. And, you know, they're doing live shows. And, you know, it'll be the first big live show that we've had, you know, down here. And so just being part of that process and learning all the things that they're doing, it'll be interesting to see how that translates to when the bigger acts, you know, start going on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you know how it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you've all had such varied careers and probably seen some of the best shows ever. Can you describe, each of you, one of the most incredible moments of your career, or one of the best memories that you've had while working on this job?
What do you
Who
want?
wants to go first?
So in 2015, Aerosmith was asked to do their city day. It was their anniversary of Moscow. And I think it was the 868th anniversary of the city. And they put on, I think they do it every year, but they put on this huge show, and it's a festival outdoors. And they did it they built a big stage that looked like a building right next to where the Kremlin was. And it was about 3 blocks from Red Square. And our hotel was that way too. So, you know, we went in a few days early, made sure everything was perfect. Well, this show, there were over 1 million people watching that show in Moscow. And we were in the center, and then there were 1 million people all around us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You need a helicopter, you know, there's no way to get out. But they had video and audio repeaters all throughout the city. So what was happening on the stage was everywhere. But so we loaded in, we did our thing, and then the crew, a lot of them wanted to go back to the hotel because there's not a ton to do. We didn't have great catering, so we thought 3 blocks, no problem. But when it was time to come back, it took like maybe 2 hours for them to walk 3 blocks just because of the amount of people.
Wow.
Wow.
That was something I will never forget, just because usually you don't feel so small, but in those couple hours, you just felt like this little tiny speck in the middle of all this excitement. So that was cool.
Wow. What about you, Carolyn?
Well, so I wanted to go on the road. I knew I wanted to go on the road since I was 15. And because I went to a New Kids on the Block concert. And I'm a boy band girl from way back when. And so I just remember being there and being like 15 going like, oh my gosh, you know, of course, cute boys, what's happening right now? And I remember seeing people on the stage in between songs. Of course, now I know guitar techs, the stage manager, like I know what they are now. But I thought there's got to be a way to get up there. Obviously thinking to work with New Kids on the Block. But that's what started my career and kind of figuring that out. So in 2019, they actually went out on a reunion tour, and I was like, wait a minute, I've been doing this for long enough. I bet I could, you know, throw in a resume to get on their tour. Might be a pie in the sky ask, but I'm going to try it. And so I did that. They already had a tour manager who's great, but they had a few opening acts. And so I was lucky enough to be the tour manager for Tiffany, one of the opening acts, and went on the road with New Kids. So it was literally, especially we played Lincoln, Nebraska, where I first saw them. And brought my parents, brought my like friends from grade school, like we were all there. And so really to have that full circle moment of like, this is, you know, when you dream it and it happens, it was a little freaky, but also this awesome moment where I'm like, okay, I actually checked that off the box and I think I'm done now. I can quit. And then the pandemic happened. I don't think it's related. I'm just saying.
It was really amazing to follow your journey with that, your experience on social media. I mean, I felt that from you. I could just tell that you were just living your best life, and it was a dream come true.
It really was. It was like me talking to 15-year-old me, being like, when you want something, you just work hard and you will get it. Like, I want to be able to tell all the 15-year-olds, just go for it, even if it's to work with a boy band.
That's all three of you. All three of you have done that. It's amazing. Yeah. What about you, Annie?
Yeah, I do have, wasn't the show I was thinking of as like one of the ones I worked, but I did have that same experience as feeling awesome. Like at 15, you know, I was watching Rancid and I was like, I'm going to be up there one day. Like, because I saw all the people on the side of the stage. I didn't know what any of that meant. I was like, I'm going to be up there. And Joan wrapped up her tour last year, 2 years ago. And it was like in Austin somewhere. And I just went and I was, you know, invited to the show inside stage of Rancid. And I was like, I actually, you know, it's like a full circle. And, you know, one of those moments that, you know, came back. You're like, wow, I did get up here one day, you know, which is like, I've obviously been on stage before, but it was like Rancid was like that band that I was like, that was when I was like, I need to be in the industry. But a show moment was definitely with Joan Jett and the Blackhearts was at WrestleMania in 2019. She was playing Bad Reputation to walk down Ronda Rousey for the first women's match headlining WrestleMania, which was also a huge thing. And right after we got, you know, the Blackhearts on stage and we ran into the wings where, you know, Ronda Rousey would walk out on stage and go down the ramp, and you just saw Ronda walk by and her and Joan kind of lock eyes, her give the head nod and go down to the ring. And it was just like, this is so powerful. And that was like one of those shows, like after we got backstage, I'm watching the match with Joan and I just gave her a hug after. And I was like, thank you. Like, this was just like such a cool moment for women. And it was just like a great experience. So that was like a really good.
Just the power of women.
Yeah, it really was. It was just
firsthand.
So many powerful women on in that stadium, you know. Wow.
All three of your stories gave me chills, and it's hot in here. So good stories. So we actually have a few really great questions from the audience that I'm going to ask. Do you have a favorite town or venue to work at?
Wow.
Is that a hard question? Probably. You probably go to a lot of great places.
One popped up for me right away. Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Hard Rock there. Great venue, great backstage, great lighting rig, great people to work with. That was just one that clicked off right off the top.
I can't think of a great one, but I know hometown shows are the hardest.
Because everyone wants to.
Yeah.
You love your people so much, but you can't take care of all your people.
I was going to say Nashville, and I was like, oh, the venues are great, but that's actually, you're right. Yeah. Guess that's out the wall. It's great.
Yeah.
And they'll want your time, I'm sure, but you have jobs to do.
Yeah.
You don't have time to visit.
Yeah.
Besides Annie, Carolyn or Jessica, do you play any instruments?
I took piano when I was in 5th grade and I stopped. Sorry, Mom. Should I kept it up? No.
2 years ago, we started rehearsals in Sheffield, England, because our band is from there. So we got ukuleles, and every morning we would go to Starbucks and play our ukuleles. It was one of the band members and our trainer and myself. I know the same 4 chords, and I haven't gotten any better, but it's a lot of fun.
I just got one, so we're totally doing that on that stadium tour we're going on together.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then you'll come back and you'll do a performance for us.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Annie, which instrument do you play? Do you play guitar?
Yes, I play guitar.
And how did you learn how to play guitar?
I took lessons at a local place in Staten Island, where I grew up, and my schools didn't have music, so I had to look elsewhere. So I would take my guitar, walk around. I had a place right around the block for me, and I just went for it.
It's awesome.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
So, what new artists are you excited about? What music do you listen to when you're on the road? Are there any new artists that you're hip to right now?
I did a Spotify does the, what you've listened to over the last year. And everything I listened to, I didn't realize it was like instrumental ambient music, because I was just like, at my house working. And so there's actually really incredible music that I didn't know who the artists were or what the names of the songs were, because it was just playing on repeat. So I finally looked at it, and there's one band or guy named Alex, and it says the name of the song is I Need to Pay Bills. I love that song. I'm like, this is amazing. So there's a lot of like ambient instrumental music that I'm loving.
I listen to a lot of punk rock. That's mostly my thing, but we haven't been able to go see new music in the past year. But yeah, a lot of punk rock.
Yeah. What about you, Jess?
We do a lot of classic rock. We are Beatles freaks. My kids are Beatles freaks too. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't really been turned on to a lot of new bands lately, which is sad, but yeah. And I think sometimes when you're in the industry too, you just listen to what you have, because there's not a lot of time to find the new stuff, But I used to be like that, but I'm not any longer.
Yeah, it's with this past year, it's been interesting with all of these events going virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had to work on any of your band's virtual? Have they done any streaming or virtual events? I mean, Annie, I know you do with your band, but is that something you think is going to continue after things go back to normal? You think we're still going to have these virtual music events? And are they good? Do you like them?
I think they'll continue on some aspect, maybe at least for up and coming bands. They might also stream their shows. But I mean, there's always with a digital age coming up. I mean, I don't see it going away at all. It's just, when it's interactive too, it's pretty cool. Like as a fan, if I was watching a band I liked, if it's interactive, it's cool. If they're just playing a show, I might like pause it. Like, all right, I'll go watch the rest later. So it's definitely different when you're like, it's a live show. You want to just stay there and be in it.
Yeah.
I worked on I produced a nonprofit fundraiser with music performances. And so we pre-taped all of our performances. I was impressed by how it ran, just from the behind the scenes part. But I could tell that the artists, even though they did amazing, there wasn't that interaction with the fans. It was pre-taped, when it played live, the host was live. So he was able to, get more reaction from people watching it. But I've watched, a few different artists that I love: Stephen Kellogg, the Indigo Girls, Brandy Carlisle. Like they've been doing them live, and I mean, I'm watching them. I know they're live. I still loved it. I'm at home in my soft pants, so it's fine. I'd rather sometimes do that.
Yeah,
I'm actually wearing actual pants. You can't see my voice now, but I said if I put this up, I would have worn sweatpants. I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jess? Have you had? I can't imagine how challenging it was. Did your kids do online learning?
They did from March of last year until June.
And so that was probably most of your time, I'm guessing, is figuring that out.
Yeah. And we were still in the beginning, still holding out hope that it would go away in 2 weeks, and then we go back to work. So we were still, and then, then you have to reroute your whole, when you find out you're not doing it, then that's a whole nother ballgame. You have to try to schedule stuff for the following year, because everybody else is in the same boat as you are. So, if all three of us have a tour that's rescheduled, we have to fight for those hotel rooms. We have to fight for those stadiums. We have to fight for all that stuff, because so time is of the essence with all of it. So we were trying, and my husband works for Aerosmith too. So he, we're both trying to juggle all of these things, and we're wonderful parents, but we're not home all the time. So it's very hard to come back into that. And then you have, the whole homeschooling, which I'm not a teacher. I don't have the patience for that. Teachers are saints. And so we were trying to figure out how to do all of that in one house together. And, without activities or friends to play with, or, family to help, because you're isolated. So it was super, super crazy. And then we got a puppy. So that was, yeah.
So for anyone who is looking to go into tour management or lighting director or anything like that, can you give us a sense of like sort of what your day-to-day duties are? Like, what do you do during the day? Not, you don't have to list everything, but kind of what makes up the duties that you do for people who have no idea what your job is? Carolyn?
I can start on that one. Yeah, I was gonna say I do all the. I would like to say I do everything before and after the actual performance, before the stage. So it's advancing all the hotels and travel, getting artists and band and crew from point A to point B, getting them from once they're in the hotel rooms to the venues, making sure the dressing rooms are set up, making sure the guest list tickets are ready to go, walking into stage. But once they're on stage. And other than, when I was on the New Kids on the Block tour, of course, I don't normally watch the show. I check it out, make sure everyone's good, and then go back to work and go get ready for the next day. All the advancing, as you mentioned, because it's so important, getting all that done, and then just getting ready, wrapping up. If I'm settling a show, wrapping up that night, getting ready for the next day, and just on and on. So it's a lot of the before and the after, but the actual show part, the during part, is left to the production manager and to the stage crew. Short answer.
Yeah, as a lighting director, Annie, yours is probably a little different than that, right?
Yeah, so for me during the day, I'm programming the show, and then I run the show during when the band's playing, and then in between that, if it's not a one of the shed tours or stadium tours, things like that, I'm also doing merch where I'm just counting in with the sellers, making sure they're all good. And then at the end of the night, I'll settle the merch and do the count out, all of that. And then do guest list and dressing rooms and anything else, anyone needs. If I could help anyone, if I can. I help with meet and greets as well. And yeah, just anything anyone needs. I just try to help out. But
So
I'm definitely a day of show.
Yeah.
Anything that happens, I'm like, I want to do it.
In essence, if something needs to get done, you either do it or you find someone to do it, right? Yeah. Jessica, anything to add to that?
You don't sit down unless you're sitting down for a specific reason. It's not like you take a break to do something. You're always either running or you're doing your day sheet, which is all the information you give your band or your crew about what's going to happen for the next day. So like you're always, or, as soon as the band's on stage, you watch the first song, then you run back and you call your hotel and say, we're leaving at 11 p.m. We'll be at your, you just have steps that you follow all day throughout the day.
Yeah, you're always one step ahead of where the band is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you making hotel reservations and flight reservations and all that?
We have travel agents that we work with, and we've worked with our travel agent, Aspen Travel, forever. And they know what your band likes. They know what kind of room they like. We have a rider, so we send that to the hotel. And so you book all your hotels, and then you call every hotel, and you go through the rider with them, and you make sure everything's perfect. Because once you arrive, you don't want to have a room without a bathtub for someone who takes a bath every day, or you don't want to be at a hotel that says, I'm sorry, it's $500 for your dog, when if you'd advanced it properly, you would know. So yeah, you just have to make sure that you double check everything. But you have people that do all the legwork for you, and you just have to make sure it's all as you like.
Yeah. And Carolyn, you've worked for a variety of different artists. Do you feel like every band, every artist you work for has a little different process? Or do you feel like you can, with obviously your amazing skill set, you can go in and just plug and play and roll with it?
I think the job itself is pretty much the same for every band, and every act, but it also depends on like what their style is. And so there's a lot of people that want you to give them updates about what's happening and what we're doing. And some people just want overall big picture ideas of, where are we going next city? I don't want the details. I just want to know. So it's really kind of figuring out, and especially in the first little bit of getting to know an artist, of like figuring out what they like and what they need, and when to kind of give them the information and back off and say, I'm here if you need me. but otherwise I'll stay away. But yeah, it takes a little bit of time of warming up, and I think kind of figuring out each other. But once you get that, you're in it.
And how much time do you actually spend with the artist, with your bands? I mean, is it like, I mean, obviously you're with them daily, but you know, how much of the time are you with the band versus like doing all of the prep work and advance work? Or is that not a?
No, it's so, like I said before, most of your major advance work is done prior to leaving home. And then your main job as a tour manager when you're on tour is to make sure every need of your band is taken care of so they can focus on their real job, which is making people happy, right? And, you know, playing their music. So if you kind of get rid of all that stress for them, so that's what we do. We just take it all away so they don't have to worry about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah.
And it also depends, I think, too, on like if the artist or the band has an assistant or somebody else. If there's other players in place that do some of the extra stuff that maybe you would normally do if they didn't have that person. So kind of you have to see what is the crew that they're coming in with as well.
And every band's different. Like some people want to stay in their rooms the whole time. Others like explore a city. With our band, they all work out. We have a trainer on the road with us, so everyone does that every day. And you know, some people like having meals together. Mm-hmm. Some people just like to have their quiet time. So yeah.
So when you're on the road and, you know, turnover in your family is probably not that common, but you know, people leave, people come and go. How do you onboard someone? I mean, all of you learned by doing it. Now, when new people come in, young people are, you know, people who've done it before. How do you help them sort of fit in, or like how do they learn the ropes from a machine that's already going?
Yeah, just like we said before, we're all a family and we don't want any hiccups. So you try to give them all the tools that they can to do their job well. Like I have a new assistant this year. He's not really an assistant. He's amazing. But I'm just going to tell him what all of our guys like. And, you know, if he has any questions, he knows he can ask me, and we'll just make sure it's as smooth as possible.
And I think that's I can't really say because I've worked in music my whole career, but I feel like that's unique to the music community, the music family. You know, I've never had anyone turn me away when I have a question, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I also had, there was a woman who's another female tour manager who is a female, who was looking for a sub. She had a couple different artists going out at the same time. And so I subbed for her. And that was another great example of like, you know, I got connected with her through somebody else. And I know the job of being a tour manager, but she was like, here's what the artist likes, here's what we do. So it was a really nice exchange of kind of onboarding from the side when she went to the other artist to finish up that job. So it was nice to feel like, even though, and we've never even met in real life. And so it was a nice feeling to be like supported by somebody who's like, here's my band or here's my artist and this is what they like, and go with God.
Yeah. And Andy, I know you worked with Joan for a while. You know, how is it within your family with new people coming on?
We definitely try to bring them in as family members right away, make them feel comfortable, because you're immediately living on a bus with them. So you're like, all right, let's be, you know, brothers and sisters right away and make sure everyone's cool. And, you know, I would say 99.9% of everyone that's ever entered the camp is awesome. You know, like, you know, everyone, it's really awesome. And there's never any issues like that. Everyone always comes in is usually people that are recommended too. So, you know, that's a big thing of networking too, as well. For someone starting out, you got to, most of those jobs of people getting the gigs are, hey, my buddy's good. Hey, this one's great. Check them out, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how that works. So you're like, all right, I already know that they're coming in and they know this one and they're great. So.
Yeah. And I think, you know, just being kind to other people and being, you know, flexible, like you said, networking is so key in this industry because it's such a small world, you know, and it's so specialized. Like people wonder what goes on in the music industry. Like the three of you, I've known all three of you for different time periods, but years, You know, I know some of you a little better than others, but now, and you know, Jessica just moved to Cleveland last year, and we haven't been able to hang out in person because of COVID. But you know, you become friends with people that you work with, because you know, every day's a work day and every day's a weekend, as our CEO here likes to say. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I saved this question for last. It's from the audience, so whoever asked it, I think it's a great question to end with. Have you ever had a "I made it" moment? Like, I've made it. This is my dream job. I made it. This is my moment.
That's a great question. What?
It's hard. I'm trying to think of that myself, because really there's a lot of those moments, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, every day though, honestly, I was talking to one of my good friends who's also in this industry about, is it time to, she was saying, do you think it's time for me to look for something else, or should I stick with it? I said, is it your dream job? And she said, 100%. I said, then no, you just wait, because it's going to come back, you know? And honestly, we are the lucky few that get to do this, you know? And there is a very small pool of people, so I feel very fortunate, and I think that might be why most of us work so hard too, because we know it's not a given. We're not handed this job. We have to work hard to keep it, and it is a privilege, and it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think every day you feel like, wow, I made it. I'm still doing this. This is great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we're talking about like a specific, like when I first started with the Blackhearts, you know, and I've seen, you know, I'm like, already Joan Jett the Blackhearts, they're huge. That's amazing, you know, and then her career's just like still skyrocketing. Shows have been bigger and bigger and bigger, which is so amazing to see and grow, and get to work at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when she was inducted was absolutely amazing. You know, I sat on a plane with the Foo Fighters going to South America with the Blackhearts at, I think I was 22, and I was like, is this my life right now? Like, this is insane, you know? And I'm just thankful and so lucky that I've been able to stay with the Blackhearts, and they're my family. You know, I can't wait for us all to kind of get back together and do what we all love.
I literally met Jessica at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony when Def Leppard was being inducted. And I knew her husband, John, because I'd worked with Aerosmith before for the Rock Hall. And it was literally on the stage, like during sound check. And it's like, hi. She's like, hi. She's running to do her job. So, you know. Yeah. Carolyn, what about you? Any moments that stand out?
I think, honestly, getting the first tour was Lilith Fair was like, it was female-fronted bands or artists, and there were so many female crew members, and that feeling of, you know, being 21 and fresh out of college and going, I can do this. Like, this is a moment. And not knowing how hard it was going to be and how many long hours we were going to have, but just being in that community of people, and especially with females all around me, I think that was, you know, and that's been a long time ago, but it was still that moment of like, okay, this is the career I wanted, or the job I think I'm going to be good at. And that set me off. So I think that's still probably one of my favorite tours, is the first one.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all so much for your time. This has been so fun. I can't believe an hour's gone by already. I could talk to you three all day. You know, any last words for anyone who wants to join this industry before we end this evening?
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Like, take an accounting class. That's my word. Learn how to do books.
Oh, that's important. Yeah.
I want to say thank you for hosting this in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You guys are always absolutely amazing. Anytime, you know.
Well, you're all part of our family.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you and Lisa for putting this together, and so cool. I'm so glad I got to be part of this.
Me too.
Yes. Well, I hope the next time I see all of you, it will be in person.
Yes.
So let's cross our fingers for that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll end on that note. Okay, thank you.
Bye.
We're ending the broadcast, I think.